find a hill I remember going to between Bristol and West-Super-Mare on that downhill section of the M5. We'd go out, try and get behind a lorry, get a run, and see if we'd get 90 out of it.
The 2,000 horsepower, £2 million electric supercar wasn't what we wanted them to do.
There are people that still feel just as powerfully and strongly about what a Lotus should be, rather than lots of trouble, usually serious.
Hello and welcome to the first of our new podcast. This will be a weekly podcast in as much as we can supply it that frequently. We're going to try really hard because we love doing it. And a few of us have told us that you like listening to it. It's going to have a name. Drum roll. Wait for it. Pregnant pause. And more drum roll. This is a fantastic name. It's so clever. It's called Chris Harris and Friends Car Podcast. It's the tomato ketchup of the podcast world. It does what it says on the tube, and it's going to deliver. It's going to deliver with sugar, with vinegar, with tomatoes. It's going to be a condiment to your life. Okay.
The condiment of condiments.
It is the condiment of condiments. Here we go. So, starting this week, we've covered it before, but we're going to cover it again with a nuance. What is your favourite set of dials, but specifically speedometer? Speedometer. And we're going to come back and hit you with the issues that matter in the world of motoring. What's your favourite speedometer, Neil Clifford?
I'm so torn on this. And I hate giving two examples, so I'm sort of not really, but I am really, because I adore the early 911 dash dials.
Yep.
Ooh. They were so good that Singer just replicated them. They couldn't be better. Even though that's my favorite dials, even though I probably said something different last time we talked about it. But when we come to speedometer specifically, I'll talk about one I've only ever seen once, never driven it, never been in one going along. It's the F50. Ooh. I think the F50 Dash, which is that very early semi-electronic but analog, I think it's beautiful because it's got three colours. It goes green into yellow into red.
Yeah.
Although that may be the taco, I can't remember. Probably the taco, but I remember this big one.
I like the red bit.
Yeah, I think probably that is the taco, obviously, because you don't really want to go into the red at the end. So it is a taco. But anyway, the F50 Dash, which I've never been in an F50. So please, any F50 owners out there would love to loan me.
We can't just walk past that moment. Are you seriously? I mean, I obviously haven't.
No. The thing is, I never go in cars as passenger if I can avoid it. And I don't even test drive a car if I want to buy it.
We know that.
It's clearly gone wrong for me a number of occasions.
My friend Richard Meaden had the ultimate passenger ride in an F50.
Oh, yes.
Turn one at Chobham. He entered turn one in a complete F50 and he exited in two. There were two parts. It split in half, I think.
No way.
Is that the event that engineers refer to as rapid unplanned disassembly?
Yes, I think I might have got that wrong, Vicky. If I've misquoted,
I think it was. I've read about that. Yeah, I think that's right. But he'll tell us if we got it wrong. But it was definitely Chobham, and he was a lucky boy to survive that one.
It's a really good shout, that, because when you get in an F50, he says humbly, you are there's three things going on. There's this engine, which you just know is going to be sensational, but it sounds even better than you thought it was going to sound. You've got this gear shift. You go, oh my Lord, that is the greatest gear shift of any car. It is the best gearbox. But then you look ahead and you see this dashboard and you're like, wow. Because it doesn't look high tech to us now, but it looks the way the sights did on an X-Fighter in Star Wars. You're like, this must have been so good when it was new. And it does look sensational. But it's so good, you look at it the whole bloody time rather than looking at the road ahead of you, which has got stuff approaching you quite quickly. It's almost so good it's a distraction.
Yeah, I do have a two or three mates that are obviously a lot more successful than me who have F50s. In fact, one man who runs a country, bless him, some of us know him, and they all say it's better than the F40. It's a big debate. We should have that debate one day probably, but the Dash I think is better on an F50 than an F40.
Okay, right. So you've set the bar quite high there.
If you run a country, I know it's a radical thing to say. If you run a country, there must be things even better than the F50 Speedo. Just saying.
I'm sure that he has those things too.
Launching a missile attack on someone?
Yeah, that sort of stuff goes on down there.
How many beers have you had, Cooper?
I've had half of a beer.
And you're already talking about attacking other countries.
Well, it's vogue these days, isn't it?
Okay.
It's Friday.
Manish, can you steer us away from conflict, please?
Yes, okay. Very, very simple answer. I feel quite consistent because I think you asked a question about indicator stalks, and this entire panel set it off, and it's the Mercedes 300 SL Gullwing Dash. I mean, it's so pretty, and I think that there's just something about the proportions of the two dials that are staring at you. I've got a photo. We'll send it to Johnny, but you've literally got, the RPM is there, the speedometer is there, and then they've got the little tiny dials just augmenting it underneath. And that speedometer, it's simple. It's analog. There's a black face. There's just white writing. It goes to, I've got a little picture here. What's it? 270 kilometers an hour. This is just a single beautiful white needle. It's perfection. It's perfection. 300 SL.
Yeah.
Mr. Cooper.
So Manish has touched on something there, which I think gets to the heart of favourite Speedo. When we were younger, well, at least I was anyway, was younger, because cars were just dream things. You didn't, fast cars, you didn't really get to see. And we had magazines, we had Autocar and Motor and What Car, but we couldn't really fully appreciate how fast they were unless you looked in through the window of a parked car to see how far did the Speedo go.
Yes.
Who didn't find that little bit of excitement? Said, look, it goes to 130. How many cars? That was 130. And I think the Speedo is the window through which my love affair with cars started. And it's kind of first love.
Can I stop you there and add, can I say that to broaden this subject very briefly, for me there were ancillary parts to a car that fitted this as well. And I think as a young budding car nut in the 70s, 80s, mainly, maybe early 90s, you looked for things. Number of exhaust pipes.
Yeah.
Speedometer, how far it read up to.
Exactly.
Did it have two wing mirrors? Sometimes two wing mirrors was like, wow.
Oh, this is so broad now.
Yeah.
Electric windows.
Rear headrests. We've been through these things. But I think above all, for me, all of them, the speedometer, the peak into the speedometer was like, yeah, wow. Sorry, carry on, Chris.
Yeah. So I agree with all of that. I think it's such an emotional. I can feel myself thinking it's how we started. It's how we all fell in love with it. It's that unique feeling of love, excitement, just wonderfulness that we have for cars. And the first time we all passed our tests, the first time we saw the needle on the dial get to 60 or 70 or even slightly more, officer. So it's kind of the first one you lived with. So for me, it's not the most exciting. It's definitely not the fastest. But the one that I have that reminds me of all of those feelings that we sort of, this is exactly, in fact, even better than I thought it was going to be. Driving a car, controlling a car. We always said we'll do this. When you talk about what is it we like about driving a car, but all of those things we thought it would be like driving a car, they were actually better than we thought they were going to be. It was just that wonderful sense of excitement and freedom and liberty and all those kind of things. So for me, my favorite Speedo is my first car. I had a Mark I Morris Mini Cooper when I was at university. It was
in the middle.
Big one in the middle.
Yeah.
It's probably worth about 40 grand now.
Yeah, it was worth a lot more at the time than I thought it was, because I had a set. I bought it with a set of. I didn't know at the time. I didn't know anything about the mechanics of cars, but I bought it with a set of banded wheels. In other words, somebody had cut the steel wheels in half, and fairly rudimentary fashion, put a band in to make the wheel wider. The tires were the same width, so the thing was just a death trap. And then I don't know how I got a set of mini light wheels, probably mini light replica wheels. And they stopped all the vibration in the car, so I could get to 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. And just feeling that excitement of that's how fast I'm going. So if the speedometer was that first window, all the things you said, Monkey, then my favorite one is probably still the one that made me realize this is even better. This whole car thing is even better than I ever hoped it would be. So Mark 1 Mini Cooper, Speedo in the middle.
I've thought about this a bit, and actually I've underestimated the extent to which you're quite right. It opens emotional doors that maybe you hadn't pushed for a while. And I'm now completely torn on what mattered most to me, or what landed most, and they are at the very poles of this subject. So the first one is these early days you talked about. For me, having a shit car when you started out, all that rite of passage stuff is different now. I know it was trying to get it off the clock. So you were celebrating the fact that it had a speedometer that didn't go very far, and you were lured in. I think my Mini would register 80 miles an hour on the speedometer. So it was almost like every day I had to try and get this thing. And I would go out specifically to try and get it off the clock. Find a hill on the. I remember going to the, between Bristol and West-Super-Mare on that downhill section of the M5. We'd go out, try and get behind a lorry, get a run, and see if we'd get 90 out of it to get it off the clock. And that was the phrase, off the clock.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the name of the podcast next week. I don't know. But I think
that's a much better name.
Off the clock. There you go. What's what happens? Off the clock as a phrase, perhaps summarizes what we all wanted to do in cars.
That's really good. That's
really
naughty.
Good. It was naughty,
yeah,
but it was innocent, and it wasn't very fast. You weren't trying to get, you weren't trying to get a 323i over 135, were you? But the other side of it is this. I think the fascination I had with peering in through car windows to look at speedometers was seeing familiar typefaces, and we know what brands we're talking about here, familiar typefaces and clock sets that had been adjusted to accommodate the extreme performance of a new model.
Yeah.
And there were two things about that I loved. You'd see these naughty numbers. I can remember first seeing an E28 M5 dashboard in Bristol. And I used to go to school with someone who had a 528i or 535i, and the Speedo went to 140. And then it had one bar below it, I think.
Yeah.
So it went 140, but it didn't say 150. There was just one white mark below it. And I looked in, and this M5 had 160 and one bar
below it. Yes.
Well, oh my God, this is huge. We need to sit down and discuss this. This is massive. I don't care what's going on. I don't care if Beirut's in trouble. This thing's got 160 on the dash.
Yeah.
And what it also meant was if you ever got the chance to go on one of these things, and I think I first had this in a 928, which had the same thing. I think a 928 S2, as it was in the UK, went to 160 and had one more. But you were used to if you were going on quickly, the needle was there, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. This thing, if you were doing 80, the needle was still up here. And I'm like, this is just extraordinary. Why is the needle's up here? This has got so much in reserve. It was, for me, it's what you'd call a flex now. It's the ultimate performance flex. Was I can do 100 mile an hour and I'm still up here. I don't even need to be around here. This is a visual thing for all those listening, but my finger is at the vertical. The ultimate flex, I think, for the 80s was to be able to go really fast, and your speedometer said, we're only halfway there.
Yeah, I think so.
I just loved, I was totally, anyhow, so within that, I think that the E28 M5 dashboard, I'm spending a lot of time in my car. I love that. I just love the idea of that.
Yeah.
I do love the fact that my E61 it's a 5 Series that normally used to have 160, and it goes all the way to 200. And it's such a busy clock face. They've actually had the numbers get smaller and bigger at times to fit it all in. But I'll throw a curveball in. The nicest looking speedometer for me is a 964. I think the rev counter and speedometer from a 964 is a little bit different to any other 911. And it's just a thing of beauty. It's not significant to me, but I would, if someone said, do you want a big clock in your house? I'd want it to look like that. I just think it's beautiful typeface.
Is that the facelift 944 turbo with that beautiful elliptical?
964, he said.
964, I said. 964.
Sorry, 964. Sorry.
964, yeah. It's stunning. Absolutely stunning.
So I've just got it here. So it's got sort of Joe 90 numerals, the miles an hour, and then tiny.
Yeah. Right. So we've just done 22 minutes on speedometer. So
can I just quickly,
there's a lot more to discuss.
Because you said X-Wing fighter, and I quite like anchoring these podcasts in little sort of moments in history. Did you know tomorrow at the BFI IMAX, they have Star Wars episodes 4, 5, and 6? And who has bought 2 tickets for the whole day? And I'm going to take my boy, and he's going to feel like he's 7 years old, because that is how I am.
That's a great thing to do.
Can you imagine watching that bloody X-Wing fighter on a big curvy screen with 40,000 speakers? I cannot wait.
Which one of those?
Yes.
Sorry, Neil.
That's a lot of popcorn.
Which one of those has Princess Leia in the bikini with the big blubbery?
Jabba the Hutt. It is episode 4, 5, 6. It is Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's beginning of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And you know, Jabba has that little annoying thing that lurks around it, like sort of ratty creature, bit squirrely ears, what have you. I often think that that's how you felt about me on race weekends. I was that sort of irritation around you, Chris Cooper, that would just sort of make noise, piss you off. I never thought
of that before. There's a lot in that. We should return to this.
Yeah.
What did you make me feel like on race weekend? And what was the motion picture analogy of that? Yeah. That's a running thread we'll return to.
Wait a minute, Chris. Are you basically saying that the other Chris was Jabba?
I realised that halfway through. That's why I engaged reverse quite quickly, Manish. Let's move on. Okay, so on our little group chat yesterday, Neil Clifford posted a picture of the back end of the Lotus Evija.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yes.
I seriously, I said, is that meant to be the front or the back?
So let's have an open discussion here, right? So they've done an SUV, they've done the Evija, they're doing what they do. I think, to use an awful pun, the wheels are falling off up there. I love the place. I've often said, you've got to deal with it, Cooper. I've often said that I love the place, and that, driving up there as a young journalist was as important as going to Zuffenhausen or Fiorano. It really was. But I don't know what's going on. And I read a lot of puff about this SUV thing, but, I'm not sure I believe an awful lot of what's said about it. I've only seen one. It was on a low loader being taken back from Cornwall 3 weeks ago. It's a shambles. Neil Clifford, I'm not going to ask you what you do to fix it, but tell me what you're seeing at the moment.
Well, I think, we all want it to succeed, right? We all adore it. It's one of the best British automotive brands. And you look at all these Electra things, and as you say, you'd never actually seen one on the road. So I can't imagine many people are buying them. And they haven't had very good reviews because, the range is shit or whatever. There's lots of things wrong with it. And then you look at this electric thing, which, again, anyone seen one on the road? And can you get
the yellow one?
Can you get excited about an electric supercar anyway? Which probably you can't. And we've talked about that before, maybe talk about it again. But really all you want them to do is, if electric is the only debate, which I'm not sure it is, because they could do a hybrid thing, maybe. You just want them to do a little electric, at least, don't you, with a 120 mile range for 40 grand that looks like an Elise, that you can plug it in and it'll charge for an hour. So even if you're running low, you can go for a coffee in the Beaconsfield services and charge it up, and you'll all be quite happy. A bit like what MG are doing in a way. All you want them to do is that. And I understand their balance between EBITDA profitability, strategy. Everyone wants a 4x4. Does anyone want a sports car anyway? I can understand all of the strategic challenges they've got, but surely the 2,000 horsepower, £2 million electric supercar wasn't what we wanted them to do for a brand enhancing strategy. If they were going to do the 4x4, we want them to do an Elise for 50 grand that we can enjoy on a Sunday and be part of the future with electric. And that's where I think they've cocked it up.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I'm not an accountant, and I don't work in the finance side of a car company. But I would say that when we say 40, 50 grand, they're under pressure for that to be the margin on the car, not the selling price of the car. And I think that's where maybe the rose tinted side for all of us needs to be acknowledged. Is there a place for the 40 grand sports car anymore on this planet? Because if you go to the board and say, I've got this idea, we want to make a car for 40 grand, they're going to go, well, at best, you're going to make 5 grand on each one. That's not a business. So
I don't agree with that.
No?
No, because if you sold 200,000, I mean, I'm sure that same debate was in Mazda in 1988.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you sell enough of them,
I reckon you'd sell hundreds of thousands of the thing.
Neil's the man who runs the company. And
exactly. I don't run companies. Chris Gibb, what do you think? You've got a big brain when it comes to this sort of thing.
I hadn't realised that was the Avija. I just saw that gopping orifices, and I know I said, is that meant to be the front or back? But I wasn't sure whether it was meant to be the front or back.
Can I just say, with my medical hat on, if somebody says gopping orifices and Avija in the same sentence, it does make me a bit queasy.
Does it take you back to those heady days as a medical student?
Does. Yeah. It was a part of.
I'm not sure you can tell many of this. Yeah, we've heard some of those stories. I'm not sure you can tell them on here, Manish.
I'm not going to.
Yeah. So I sent a while ago, a few weeks ago, I sent you a picture of a Lotus Esprit V8 late model.
Yes.
That I had a photograph of. It was a fast friend. He and I were driving down. It was a gentleman driving the car. I was in my 2010 SL63, which is really, really good fun. I really like it. And we come down the A30 into Cornwall about 3 weeks ago. And a bit of ebb and flow in traffic. And there was a bit of a stationary bit. I took a photograph in front of me. And it's hard to imagine how far away that Lotus is now. I mean, I think one of the reasons why we feel, and I think you spent a lot more time there, Chris, than we did. But I would occasionally, when you and I were in Germany, meet some of the Lotus engineers, Tony Shute, his son, the Beckers, all those kind of people. And they were just as impressive and interesting and extraordinary as the people from Porsche and anywhere else. They were genuinely enthusiastic. They were genuinely capable. They got what we and all the people that listened to us really, really appreciated in the car. And it's because of the people that we felt, yeah, this is, even though Colin Chapman is no longer here, there are people that still feel just as powerfully and strongly about what a Lotus should be, rather than lots of trouble, usually serious. And at one level, I sort of fear we've seen this movie before, which is the movie of, well, what happened to MG then? After, various people had a go at not doing it very well. And now it's one of the fastest growing brands, but it doesn't look anything like anything that MG would have. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that is the answer. But it's only the answer if you don't have the imagination and the ambition to say, I'm not satisfied with the answer that just satisfies in some of my investors. And I spent a bit of time with some of my clients. Some of you know, you guys know I run a consulting business. And I spent a bit of time recently with some of the clients I deal with, having this sort of quite surprising conversation about how ambitious are you? And I don't mean how big you want to be, but how brave you want to be. And how brave you want to be in terms of the speed and the nature of what you do. And I think that's the bit we sort of feel we want to see in Lotus. I mean, it is, we've all got Lotus stories. I mean, I ordered a Mark I, the original Lotus Elise, when I had a Caterham 7 at the time, so in 96. And I ordered the green one with the tan leather. Lynn and I just got married. And I'd already had this Caterham, and Lynn was slightly. She said, "Why are you buying another car? We've just got married. We need to save for, but we're just having a house rebuilt." So I sort of, in a fit of slightly awkwardness, I thought, well, I better cancel the order. Adrian knew he bought it, I think, and turned it into that funny Brit car race kind of thing. I raced a Elan 26R at the Spa. Remember, you were there, Chris, with Frankel's in the big, remember that Spa 18?
Yep.
And I raced an Elan 26R, which is such, it was a bit like getting into a slightly smaller pair of shoes. Once you're in it, it was actually quite something my height. But it was such a lovely thing to drive. Such like in a Caterham 7 is a Lotus. We just, it's affected all of our lives. So, this afternoon, I thought, I'm just going to look at the Lotus website. And all it seemed to be full of, was the Electra.
That's all that's on there.
The Electra is the big SUV thing. I have seen one. In fact, earlier in the year, coming down to Cornwall on the A30, I saw the yellow one. There only seem to be yellow ones. And I generally thought, I have no idea what that is. And luckily, the badging is quite small. So I'm quite torn about it, because it will probably work as a business model, but it doesn't really feel like, a bit like MG. And the difference is, this may have upset MG aficionados. The Lotus product mostly was just extraordinary. Just really, really amazing. Maybe not enough of us bought it. We all thought it was extraordinary. We didn't buy it. Who knows? I'm sure people that were at Hethel in the early 2000s and late 2000s and 2010s would say, yeah, if we bought more of them, we wouldn't have this problem. And the MX-5 came along, and it really did change the world. But, you're right, Neil. I think Mazda clearly make money out of the MX-5, and it's a good product.
But look at that. Look. That's an Elite. It's 1961, one of the prettiest cars
totally
ever built, no matter what the budget.
Yeah.
Why can't they do that for 65 grand? Hybrid, little 3-cylinder, little high revving thing with a little electric motor or whatever. You'd sell loads of them. I'd go and buy one.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of points about Lotus. Do we think this is an example of a brand that effectively was, ever since its figurehead died, has always struggled? Because, it was always such a crazy story, Lotus, its motorsport and its road cars, that once Chapman had gone, it did struggle. What's it done since Chapman? Really, the Elise. That's Elise. Kind of it, isn't it? It hasn't. Everything else was a rehash. Everything else was a generation, a next generation of Esprit. The Eclat was just an Elite that had been renamed. And so I think, if you've got such a charismatic figure that he ran that company in every respect, didn't he? There's no one else going to look at. Once he'd gone, was it always going to struggle?
University for me was Lotus, and weirdly bookended. There was someone in my year who was a pretty wealthy young man who I think he just thought Cambridge was a bit of a joke, and he pretended to be Anthony Blanche. I think I've mentioned him before, and he had the most beautiful Esprit Turbo. This is an 86. Was finished. Tickford did it, so it had the sort of pearl white, blue leather. He would very, very rarely speed in it. And I remember, he would give me a ride to London when I used to go and see my mum. So he said, he'd never called me Manish. He always called me Hamish. And he said, Hamish, I shall give you a ride to London.
Why did he do that?
Sorry?
Why did he call you Hamish?
Because he thought he was Anthony Blanche from Brideshead. He had a fantastically affected start, and he would go, Hamish, I shall give you a ride to London.
I've never seen it, but that looks like a really good impersonation.
Honestly, he had a great heart. Anyway, so that was one thing. But our biochemistry lecturer, he had an original Elan. He actually put an order for it at the motor fair, and it was mustard yellow. He kept it in a mint way, and he actually took us flying, a few of us. And I just remember these two cars as, we'd all seen the Spy Love Me at the age of 10. These cars were extraordinary. This Elan, I just never been in a car like that. And this Esprit Turbo, I'd just never been in a car like that. And, that third pillar of Lotus for me is Senna. People forget, he drove a Lotus.
First
That's the
victory,
car he won his first Grand Prix in. That
Portugal
was the car that
'85.
had active suspension. He won Monaco for the first time
See,
in a Lotus.
do you know what's interesting about nationality stuff? For me, it wasn't Senna, it was Mansell. I
Okay,
remember
sure.
being in my mate's study in his house with his family, cheering Mansell on in a JPS Lotus at the British Grand Prix. Nigel was. I hate to say it. If I picture Nigel, I almost picture him more in that than I do a Williams.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because he and Colin clearly were kindred spirits.
Absolutely.
What was the thing? Peter Ward, the manager, remember Mansell had that really unfortunate one where he put it on a white line at Monaco in the wet. And Peter Ward, the team manager, who sort of carried on after Chapman died, famously said of Nigel Mansell, that man will never win a Grand Prix as long as he has a hole in his arse.
It's such a good line. You've actually slightly got that wrong. He said, that man will never win a Grand Prix as long as I've got a hole in my arse.
Sorry, you're right.
Blimey. So basically, this is our warning for get yourself checked for bowel cancer, because you could have something quite specific undone if you end up on a stoma. So I'll add one thing here, right? And this is me. I've got my head on from having read a bit about this. I think there might be something else going on. So Lotus was revived by Geely Cash. So Lee Shufu's lot come in. Geely, the people that bought a chunk of Mercedes-Benz, they own a chunk of Mercedes. They own Volvo, and Lotus was a Geely project. But we also know that Geely is sniffing around Aston Martin. Yeah. So I get the sense that they've had a look at the Lotus project, they've had a look at the brand, and they've thought that brand will not get us to where we want to get to with a sports car name in our portfolio. I think they're gradually turning the taps off at Lotus with a view to buying Aston Martin. It's a theory, but everything that's happening seems to support it.
Wow. So what would happen to Hethel?
I just don't know. I mean, it's a centre of excellence for so many things.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you do with it, but I just, if you look at, it's known for ride and handling, for chassis, but also powertrain. But at the moment, this is a centre for ride and handling, and its website only shows something called the Electra, which is a SUV. I don't believe.
And about 10 pages of. I looked at it this afternoon. You're scrolling through all these pages of different models. I mean, God, bloody hell, it's just.
Yeah,
I'm sure I said this to you.
Yeah, it's a sandwich filler website. They haven't got enough to talk about.
That's what it is.
They could own the affordable electric sports car globally. That brand is that strong enough, I think.
And I said to Neil at the beginning, I'm not going to ask you to try and fix it, but I'm with you. If you gave us a Lotus, if you gave us something that weighed 1,000 kilograms, it was electric, had a gearbox, didn't even need a gearbox, but if it had something you had to just a lever to move around that you had to use, map it so it's got gears. Someone can do that easily, and make it look beautiful, and sell it for 30% less than a Porsche Boxster. And if that means it's got no interior and you just sit on a wicker chair, so be it.
But it's got enough brand equity. It's got the brand equity, definitely.
And also it's got the narrative, the story's there. That's a car that Porsche can't make. That's a car that Ferrari can't make. In fact, if you listed all the car companies that could make that with a straight face, Lotus is the number one.
It is, yeah.
It's got the strongest brand.
Alpine have got the closest, obviously, with the 110, right? That should be the Lotus, shouldn't it? Really?
Yeah. But they seem to be in almost worse trouble. And it comes back to, I think we've all said it, this: if there was somebody with a vision and ambition to say, I can see, I've got my story. There's a story here about what I think it can be, not what the spreadsheet and all the analysts have said and have done 1,000 versions of the modal.
Bloody
said, well, actually, here's the best. Exactly, yeah, because they're no, totally. I totally agree with you. That's why I get
don't
frustrated.
Get their advice.
God, yeah. So it's that sort of somebody with a bit of. Mike Kimberley was a really interesting guy. He got quite clear. He was a very interesting guy. So I think we could be quite optimistic about it, but I to the fee may be right, Mr. Harris.
Here's an important one. My web searching history at the moment stop giggling at the back, would show a very unnatural amount of Alpina searching. I don't know why, but I want another Alpina. I love them. I just think it's such a cool brand. I know they've been bought by BMW. So I get to 10 o'clock at night, I'm going to go to bed. And before I know it, I've been looking at Alpinas for an hour. So the question is,
history.
Which Alpina would you like to have to live with and drive for the next 10 years? Give me a model. Neil Clifford, you are allowed to say the one I've got.
I'm going to say that. because let me just talk you through it. Alpina green.
Yeah.
Debadged.
Yeah.
Probably not the leather that I would if I was ordering one new, but that sort of white leather. But as long as you don't wear jeans, you're safe.
Yeah.
2018, so it doesn't have the laser cruise, but it also still has some knobs, so you've got the compromise.
And it's got dials. It's got the clocks.
Dials. The dials go blue, obviously. You haven't got any silly lane safety bollocks, which is just another never to buy a new car in the history of my life going forward. It's half the price of a new one. It's still handmade, and it looks the bollocks with those 4 exhausts at the back. And, you've got a 200-mile-an-hour Speedo and a little plaque.
Yeah.
And it sounds fantastic. And even the wife likes it because it's not too harsh. The dog doesn't like it. That's a bit of a challenge.
Why not?
I don't know. He's, first world problems. He prefers a Range Rover. I think he's got a better view at the back or something. But obviously...
And to this point, I want to tell all listeners that we are really going to aim to keep this podcast real and in touch with everyone.
Yeah.
Okay? We want it to be accessible. So at the moment, we're debating whether Neil's dog, why he doesn't like being in an Alpina but prefers a Rangy.
Yeah. No, well, actually, I don't believe this story about the dog not liking it because it's a wife story. He doesn't like that car. Can we not go in that one? But he's never...
Have you asked your dog?
He's never said he doesn't like it.
Well, there you go then. I think you haven't got a problem.
I think it's all a conspiracy. Maybe it's the wife like the car. Anyway, that's the Alpina I would have. And I'm never going to sell it unless I have to, or I'm dead and then the wife will sell it because the dog doesn't like it.
I hadn't realised this question was which Alpina B5 would you have the next 10 years?
No, it wasn't. So you can answer whichever Alpina you want. Over you go, Chris Cooper.
Because the obvious answer is the one that the two of you have got. It's an Alpina B5. It's the pre-facelift F30 because that's got the silly Space Invaders digital things.
Yeah.
Hit dash. I've sort of got my name down for the last of the B3s, the B3 GT.
Oh.
It's a very laggy engine, that one. Even the standard B3 is very laggy, which part of it I quite like, but it's got a lot of torque steer. The front wanders a bit when you want to give it the beans, the berries, as Nigel would say, as we mentioned earlier. It's very hard to walk past a B5 with the proper clocks, with the Alpina blue, and all the things you said, the plaque, the handbill bit. Would you have decals or de-decaled, Neil?
I've got decals because I didn't buy it new.
Yeah.
And I've debated a lot with people that I trust whether I should take them off.
Would you trust us to guide you on this?
No,
clearly not.
No, but I like that. I know it's
don't take them off. Don't take them off, Neil.
I think keep them on. And plus, if I take them off and I think it's wrong, it's such a fuck to put them back on.
Yeah, I think if you got them on, don't take them off. I would prefer to find one without. I've never quite.
Yeah.
Right, so
can I acknowledge something there? I think the F-bomb is that word is the most versatile word in the English language, but I've never heard it used in that context. It's such a fuck to take them off.
I've
never heard it used that way.
It's the podcast to the people.
It is.
It's a good way of using it.
But go out there, people. If something's awkward, just say it's a fuck. I don't want to do that. It's a right fuck.
Yeah. So I haven't answered your question. So if I didn't want to be, because you know my contrariness, everyone's going to get a B5 Touring 2018 late model. If you didn't get one of those, like you, E28 B9 3.5 that's quite, but in 10 years' time, it can be a bit leggy. Actually, the one that I think, if you could find one that was reasonable mileage, it sort of feels like a bit of it's in that nether period in the middle where some of the product wasn't as good as they are. E39 B10 VAS.
Yeah.
I get a saloon. I remember borrowing one like 20 years ago, thinking I'd had an E39 540. And the difference between those two cars, you think, well, it's just got a little bit more power. And it's just so different.
There is
So I
one
get a
around,
saloon.
actually. It's been around forever for about 40 grand, isn't there?
Yeah.
That green one. But it's a
That
bit
one.
toppy on the price.
Yeah. What's the mileage on it?
The S, I
Yeah.
remember, I
The
managed to
S.
blag a long-termer out of
Yeah.
Sittner's, and it had 380 horsepower rather than 360, and he did notice the difference. It would do a genuine 175 on the auto route. You're right. They're great cars, aren't they? Okay, Manish, what Alpina would you have?
Do you remember I told you a story of when we went to I was in California and I went to hand in my stepmother's 535, and this was in the mid 80s, and they let me drive the BMW 750 IL because they thought my dad might want to buy it. And I just like, so this is 1987 E32.
Yeah, with the wide kidneys.
Yeah.
Exactly. As well, and Chris particularly loves the glove compartment with its little appendage. And so I didn't know this, but I did have a lovely trawl, and it's the B12 based on that. It's based on the 7 Series G32. It's a V12, 5-litre V12. And everything about this car is, because you did say we have to keep it for 10 years. And I was thinking, well, look, we've got Lola. So we've got the sort of basically the 2+2 experience. And I just love the idea of a saloon. I mean, I've only ever had a bloody Audi A4 Avant. I don't want another estate. I've decided I don't want another estate. I don't want a touring. I love the idea of the most wonderful saloon I drove as a kid, where 300 Bavarians sit and toil and basically rehand build it. And it's just some of the ones that are out there. There's one that's black with basically a kind of deep tan leather. It looks very deep-edged, no decals. That's my car for 10 years. It looks as good now as it did 35 years ago. And in 10 years' time, it will look just as good. So that's what I'm getting.
Do you think, Manish, that you're going to go properly mental now in
you guys, you know what Luca Montezemolo would say about you guys? You go in this podcast with these guys, they are bastard. That is what they are bastard. You had money in the bank, you are not completely and utterly broke. You live underneath a bridge, but you got 13 fucking cars. Why?
Yeah, all right.
I think there is no doubt about this. There is no doubt about this. It's just going to happen.
I'm a bit torn here. I'm obviously Googling, looking at stuff, because I've changed my mind 3 times in the last 5 minutes.
You can do.
There's so many of these bloody things that are desirable. So I've got
great question.
Got 2 for you. I think Alpina's at its best when it delivers something that BMW, even its M division, wasn't delivering it. So, and I think for me, the car that best defines that is a weird thing called a B8 4.6 Touring. It's an E36 M3, basically with a tuned 540i V8 in it and a 6-speed manual gearbox, which you could get in an estate car shape with a locking rear diff and those incredible green fabric seats with the big bolsters. So I think that is a car. I mean, and there's one there. There's one just I don't know who the owner is, but
wow, that's good.
So that's got what's it got? That's a 3.5.
4 points, a 4.6 V8.
Is it
4.6 V8?
Yeah, V8 4.6. It was a rare.
Why haven't we all got one of those?
333 horsepower.
Oh my god!
With a 6-speed manual and a locker.
Piston head.
So BMW just didn't make a car like that. Then
they didn't remotely make something. No. Okay, that wins.
Well, you can imagine it came with a price tag. So I would love one of those.
We know what that price tag was at the time. Just out of
massive amounts of money. I don't know exactly. I could look up on the registry.
Twice an M3 or something.
Right.
That'll be 50,
I'll see if
55
I can
grand.
find it on you as I
Wow.
scroll down in a minute. But I think they were 60, 70,000 pound cars,
Yeah.
which, at a time when an M3 was 35.
Yeah, twice
So,
an M3, yeah.
but actually, the car I really want, they're just too expensive now. Unless I get them, I want a saloon B12 6 litre. I love them. A 6 litre, and to sticker or not to sticker, yeah, give me
Yes.
stickers.
Okay.
Also, give me crazy stickers. Like, don't give me silver stick. Don't give me black stickers on a silver car. Give me white stickers on a silver car. Give me gold stickers on a black car. Give me that wild, when they did the E28, there was a white car that had all the greens and the blues and the what have you done. It's like,
multicolour.
give me that.
Yes.
Give me I just suddenly I've got a massive hard on for Alpina at the moment, and I got to get it down. I'm like a fucking dog with a lipstick sticking out of its pelvis, and I need some Alpina in my life.
Are we still on?
It's fucking. It's just disease. I don't care. I need one.
You get one. Get one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, Manish. This is where you're going to give us an update on the 456. You don't have 35 minutes to talk us round regassing an aircon system, because we're not here to help people fall asleep.
In the last episode, had I even driven it? That's the bit.
No.
You had.
I had. So it is back with Lola's back with DK Engineering. Yes, there's a little bit of work to do on the air conditioning, but the great existential debate, and I met Mr. Clifford at Hampton Court today, and we were spoken to very gently by the people from Rorke's, because the big debate about Lola is, do I completely refurb the interior,
retrim,
completely retrimmed or not? And as I texted you guys, oh my God, only two of you are shaking your heads. Chris just so saintly, not digging. So my view is, you can't tell what a car looks like from the outside while you're driving it. And she was bought. I mean, she was built in 2000. The interior color is Sabia. She's got black piping. I think it all looks just a little bit tatty. And this car has only got 22,500 miles on the clock. Literally, this engine is a mint engine, which probably has 20,000 miles to do before it's even broken in, according to a certain famous website. And I really want to go for it. And I'll never get the money back. That's kind of not the point. The point is, I've done it. I've done it. I bought her. I love her. And I just kind of feel, let's go for it. Let's buy her the best dress I can possibly buy her, and just shag her brains out. That is basically the plan. That's it.
Have you've been quoted prices?
I have been quoted prices, and basically it's about 60% the value of the car. But I've just married Cinderella.
If you're going to do it, Rocky and AJ are the best people.
Yeah, clearly
they are. But they will be a bit more than someone around the back of a building estate in St Albans or whatever. So you have to be a bit careful who you take it to.
Of course. Well, but it's Philip DK. If I'm being guided here, but I mean, it did feel like I met the creme de la creme. And remember, Chris, you said when we were filming in Italy, do you remember the Berlinetta Boxer?
Oh my God, I've never seen. I'm like Neil. I'm just against this, because it's just, when you've got an old building and you think, oh, I'll just peel that bit of wisteria back, and before you know it, like the whole front of your building falls off. You think, I wish I'd left that there. That's the analogy. But the trim job on this Berlinetta Boxer was perfect. It looked like a new car.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that would look really nice. And I agree with Manish wholeheartedly. You don't see the outside of your car when you're driving it. You don't. You see the inside of your car. And if the bit where the airbag is all lumpy and wavy, and it's not nice. And the 456.
I do. And the other couple of things, I found a company in America that does drilled chrome plates. including the kind of rest plate for your clutch. So that would be rather beautiful. There's a beautiful brand new panel for the gear stick, absolutely unblemished. Just little tiny things like that. And I could see
I'm
this.
feeling you could launch a Resto Mod 456 company called the Manish.
No,
The Hamish.
We're
No,
not debating. We're not
look, the
debating
other thing I've
Resto.
been doing, and I have because of Mr. Clifford. I mean, I have been bloody on
Was
all
he
the
leading you astray or leading you back to the path of righteousness and virtue?
No, I'm saying, but he has many paths of righteousness and virtue, and one of them was
That's our Neil.
a Boxster, and I've been looking at them. I mean, it's what have I been depriving myself of, for God's sake?
Well, this is you're reborn. This is a process of evangelical renewal.
You've come out.
Yeah.
I think the Boxster 986 is the best value, £5,000 that you can, if you've got, that it's just the best car in the world. It really is £5,000.
Yeah,
but don't get the one that Neil had.
It's down in the New Forest at the minute. I've lent it to a mate.
I'm having a car retrimmed at the moment.
I've
never done it. I've never done it before. And I'm doing it partly because the interior is, it just needs to work. That M5 Touring of mine, the seat feels amazing, but they're notorious. Those seat bolsters they just sag. They're just terrible.
They go.
I always love the fact that everyone that's selling an E60 or E61 M5 always photographs the interior so they don't show how the bolsters are collapsed. They find any angle not to show that bolster.
Yeah.
Does yours have the dynamic bolsters?
It's all good. Those aren't too bad. It's the squad bolster.
Are you rebuilding the seats or are you retrimming the leather?
When you take them apart, you might as well put new foams in. And do you know what? BMW still sells OEM seat foams that you can buy that are exactly the correct foam. They are available on their parts website. So we're buying all the new parts and we're going to rebuild everything. And I'm not going to say how I'm having it trimmed, but this is, I agree with Manish on this as well. I don't want what it had before because I didn't like it. It was too light. So I'm going for something completely different. And I've never done this to a car before. And I have to say, and this will become a really boring theme for my voice on this podcast, I'm so much more into renewing what I've got than buying new stuff at the moment. I'd rather, I'm going to do this with lots of my shit old cars. I'm going to, rather than say, I'm going to buy something new, he says after saying he wants an Alpina, I'm going to spend money on my old shit.
No, I think that's a good strategy.
There's some joy in it, and I get involved in it. And you know what? You meet incredible people that can do incredible things. Like this trim guy whose company, I can't remember his name, was Peter Hobbs. I've been put in contact with him. He sends me samples of what we might be able to put in the car. He talks to me. He gives me time of day to talk about stuff. If I went into a BMW garage to buy a new BMW for 150 grand, they'd give me 1 minute. This lad, he's there saying, how do you want it to be? How would you like it?
I love this.
I think that's my current car journey, is just to open these doors and meet some of these mad people. And I'll get shat on and something will break. It won't be Peter, but something will go wrong, I'm sure. But at the moment, renewal feels more interesting and loving than buying brand new things. Which it's probably a slightly sort of He-Man way of ending the moral message at the end of Manish's 456 thing. But there we go.
But Manish, sorry, when will you be driving it?
It's a DK now. If she goes in at the end of September, it's 2 months. So not till the end of November or even early December.
But then it's a bit shit and it's winter. Don't you want to drive it a bit and then put it in for...
I do, which is why I'm going to have a chat with all concerned.
With Phil. Phil, the legend.
He's a legend. He is.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
It is drivable. You can drive it now.
No. Oh, but by the way, there was one other eccentricity. We picked the car up. They said the electronics, as Mr. Harris told me, were somewhat primitive. And the average ECU is the size of a shoebox in this car. And he said, when you first fill the car up with petrol, the filler cap is a little finicky in in its positioning. And if you don't position it exactly right, you'll get a check engine and the car won't start.
Yeah.
Which was basically, I don't know. Anyway, I went to our local BP that I've been filling up at for the last 20 years, filled her up, which was about 3 million quid, put the cap on, sat down, check engine, went out, because you have to, you have an immobilizer. So went out, undid the petrol cap, did the petrol cap again, put the lid down, immobilizer, didn't work. I was there for 30 minutes.
No.
Yes, and and you should have seen the queue behind me, somewhat pissed off. Start your car. So
Welcome to the dark side.
I'm going to get a little bit of lipstick, I think. Just put a little like a vertical line on it because I know the exact position now. Just get a little nod.
That's the sign. That's the sign.
Yeah.
You're transitioning.
If you carry on like this, you'll own a TVR soon.
Yeah. They're good. That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
We're going to move on to some F1 chat. Yeah. It's been a long time since we've talked about F1 to any of you, or between ourselves, really, in a public way. So there's too much to discuss. A lot's happened since April. So I'm suggesting we contain it to 3 subjects. 1, Antonelli, /wall. 2, Christian Horner's utterance this morning or last night about how he was surprised that Lando Norris hasn't won more races in that car, that McLaren. And 3, what the hell is going on at Aston Martin road car division when it comes to safety cars? So let's start off with Chris Cooper. Maybe you could give us your views on Antonelli stepping up.
So Antonelli is he's the chosen one. He is just the chosen one. And I think he's Toto's favourite child. And he can do no wrong in Toto. I mean, clearly, they know what they've got. He's done lots of old car testing and lots of stuff. And they clearly don't think he's an idiot. They think he's quite the opposite. And it could be that today was just a bit of pressure and so forth. But, that was, it's buggered up George's weekend. I'm surprised they gave him George's car. I thought they were giving him Lewis's car because George is, there next year, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, they gave him George's car. So he wrecks George's car in a second flying lap. So George didn't get practice 1, lost half of practice 2 because they're still fixing his car. I think Toto, I've talked to a few people on the inside of the tent about this to say, is it just me or is Toto fallen out of love with George? I just don't think he necessarily sees him in the future. In Toto's perfect world, he'd have Antonelli and Verstappen, in my view, which is why he's still saying he knows he wants Antonelli. I think he was clearly upset that they missed Verstappen, but then Red Bull nearly missed. Verstappen wasn't a Red Bull junior. He was just cleaning up in karting in European F3 and winning everything. I said, well, hang on, this kid looks good. So the Antonelli thing, he's clearly the chosen child. He's going to be in the car next year. Everyone says he's going to be brilliant, but who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, it's hard to know. So, I mean, Toto is literally, he's betting the farm on him.
I think the point you made there that's made me go, you're quite right. Why wasn't Ian Lewis's car? Why risk, if George is the next year's driver, why would you, and one outcome of putting a rookie in a car at Monza is he's going to stack it. Why risk your next year's driver?
Because he's fallen out of love with George. I think he must have been in love with him because he must have clearly thought. Definitely. And I think it will make, George said a couple of times when he's been interviewed, do you think you spent 1 year too long at Williams? And he's always said, no, I spent 2 years too long at Williams.
Yeah.
And with Antonelli, they're clearly going the other way. He's doing his rookie season in F2. F2 is always a bit of a lottery. This year in particular, he's clearly not bad, but I don't think he's necessarily outshining everybody. But Mercedes know a lot more than we do because they run him in near current cars a lot. Not quite like Lewis had with McLaren, but very similar. And, there's no romanticism. If they thought he wasn't the real deal, they'd have quietly got rid of him. When Vettel came up earlier on the year and said, do you know what, I might be available next year, what happened to that? It all went very quiet very quickly. Why? Because nobody rated him. So Toto, clearly, he's the chosen one. He can do no wrong. It might be amazing. He looks like he could be amazing, but who knows? So yeah, he's the chosen one. So like your new puppy is pooed on your new sofa. Don't worry, he's a little darling. It's kind of what happened today.
Neil Clifford, what do you think about Christian Horner being very impish and trying to just poke the stick at Lando and McLaren?
I mean, he's really hard to like, isn't he? I like to see the good in everybody, but fuck me, why would you come out and say that? I know he's probably trying to wind up McLaren.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm sure
that's the only reason.
I'm sure he's, I'm playing mind games, but he's no Alex Ferguson, is he? Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit clumsy.
Neil, I'm making that movie, Horner, and it's the same to he's no Alex Ferguson. That will be the log line.
You've really got to be so emotionally intelligent to be able to play those mind games. Yeah. And I don't think he's got the IQ. Clearly, he's a very hardworking guy. You can see that he thinks he works harder than everyone on the planet. I'm sure he does in many respects. But it's all a bit boiled frogs there, isn't it? He's going to be the last one left. He's going to have to be driving 2 cars as well as managing the fucking team, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? It's like,
I think what I love about Formula One and what this utterance reminds us of is that it's such a mad world that you can believe your own shit and you can revise history. You can reinvent yourself, not in a week, but in a day. And so I bring this back to parenting. This is a random way of doing it. One of my children pissed me off last week and continued to do so. And I love him dearly. And last night we had a bit of a chat. And I said to him, do you know what? Right now, you've got no skin in the game. In our little unit, you're on the naughty step. And so if we're going to go somewhere for lunch, I'm not really interested in what your opinion is because you're just going to wear it. You just got to wear it for a bit, okay? We love you dearly, but you're going to wear it. The others might have an opinion. I might listen to it, but not you at the moment. And it's going to take a little bit of time. You'll earn it out, and all will be brilliant. And you're great. You're a legend. But right now, that's just stay there. Horner's there, and I'm thinking, when he makes the utterance, I'm thinking, I'm still not sure if that was your finger or your cock. And you're giving us chat about whether Lando should be winning races or not. I mean, I just can't help but admire the chutzpah.
It's a lack of social awareness. It's a lack of awareness, isn't it? Really, he's King Canute spelt wrong, isn't he?
Yeah. Take out. Yeah, some of the letters.
I'd just be like, well, do you know what? Maybe just the PR people are saying, oh, hold on. I've got a load of settings going on here. How do I get? There we go. Just back it off a bit. Maybe Christian, don't say anything for a bit. Adrian's gone, Wheatley's gone. They're quite good, like they're sort of world beaters. And you're a bit off the pace. So they've both gone. Now the car's a bit slower. So maybe that stuff about them not really mattering too much might not be the case. So that when you go out there with your big lightsaber to bring the old Star Wars thing and start going, I'll have you all. And why have you only won 2 races there? We're all going, but mate, what? I'm not. Yeah. Is that a nail?
It's a finger.
Is that? I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it now. Is that a nail or a helmet?
Depends on your perspective.
It's tricky.
So yeah. Now I want to ask one other question here, and I normally put these not to Manish, but Manish. The F1 safety car is actually one of the coolest little nuggets of history of the sport because there's been everything from the Lamborghini Countach that crashed at Monaco whilst it was a safety car. There's been Taki Inui being run over by what I think was some sort of Tatra thing. We've had them all, and at times they were terrible. And of course, let's face it, the Senna weekend is a poor piece of safety car iconography because we remember it was the wrong car for the job and might have contributed to that awful weekend. But what I saw yesterday was ridiculous. A safety car going off at Monza with its lights on its roof. I mean, talk me through that. What's going on?
We saw it from a front from front mount. I mean, basically, the camera was looking directly at the car as it came, and it wobbled, didn't it? You
Yeah.
saw it wobbled, braking in a straight line.
Yeah.
And so that kind of implied something broke on the safety car. It wasn't the driver of the safety car missing his braking point. So basically, the safety car needed a safety car. And a
Did
friend
they
of mine
send a
once,
safety? Did they send one out?
I mean, something must have been
I
sent.
wish they had. I wish they sent out a Mercedes
Oh,
instead.
I bet they sent out a Mercedes medical car to drag them out as well.
I mean,
That'd be brilliant.
as you guys said earlier, it's the worst possible look. Do you remember when CDs came out? The whole point about a CD was it wasn't a record. It gave you record quality sound, but you could do anything you like with this CD. I remember on Tomorrow's World, they covered one into dog shit. They scratched it. They put it under a tap. They stuck it into a CD player and listened to it. And then somebody created the CD cleaner. And you're like, you had a CD cleaner. Then would you need a CD cleaner? And I felt that the safety car was that kind of meta level PR disaster yesterday. It was a PR disaster. Your safety car cannot brake.
It looks like the brakes went, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I
Rear
mean,
brakes.
there was a mechanical on the safety car. There is one car that's not allowed to have a mechanical, and it's a safety car.
It's like an ambulance broken down the side of the road. It's not a good look, is it?
It's
With
the fire
both
engine in
the
flames.
drivers through the windscreen. No, it's a very, very bad look.
I'm afraid for me, and I've got some films that will come out on my channel soon. It's a little bit consistent with what's going on with their road cars. I love Aston Martin. I have a sort of similar thing because I'm a British car journalist and I'm getting old. I don't feel the emotional attachment necessarily as I do to Lotus, but I want Aston Martin to succeed. I'm absolutely of the opinion that a good Aston Martin is good for all of us. But I'm not convinced they're finishing their road cars. I think they get to a point where they're almost done.
And that will do.
And I just, has that contributed to that? It's probably a component that was supplied to them that failed. But that's what tends to happen to cars. You become less lucky when you're not finishing stuff. So yeah, I'm not going to give them a massive kick, but I just thought that looked awful. It just didn't look good at all.
Before we move on, just from Formula One tiny little thing. Does anyone remember Jan Magnussen, Kevin Stapp?
Yeah. Oh,
And do you remember Jackie Stewart shopped him around the world as this is the guy who broke Senna's record in F3.
Winning races and championship.
The best ever guy. We've analyzed all the data. I've given you all the data. That is my Toto Wolff Antonelli kind of deja vu.
That's interesting. That is interesting.
Data is all data. And I think, to bet the house, I mean, just going back a microsecond, my understanding is that the reason why Lewis is not driving a Mercedes next year is because he wasn't offered a solid 2-year contract. He was offered a 1+1.
1+1.
He was offered a 1+1 because of Antonelli, I assume. So basically what you're saying is that Antonelli's data is so good that you're going to let definitely one of the greatest drivers in time, arguably the greatest driver of all time, go because of some data on somebody in a lower formula. And it just really reeks of Jan Magnussen. And so
that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. That is an interesting analogy and an interesting parallel to draw. That is an interesting one. The other thing to say about Formula One, which is the other thing, is we've got a championship. There's now a race.
Amazing.
It's how dominant was Lando at Zandvoort. So
yeah,
we got. I would never have. Beginning of the season,
we should, and that wasn't meant to be. That section was meant to be a win. We are lucky because there are potentially 6 cars that could win the next few races. I suspect someone's going to get a performance advantage going forwards, and the degree to which this brake is this ability to brake the car in high speed corners that might have been removed.
Yeah, interesting that one.
I love all that speculation. If you're in any way interested in this stuff, go online and search stories about the Red Bull braking system that they think they might have found something that was a bit trick.
Oh,
and
really?
it does seem to be consistent. I love all that stuff. Go on and read the Mark Hughes of this world. They're brilliant at taking this stuff apart. If you fancy
Mark Hughes is
investigating further,
And who created brake steer in the first place? Mr. New.
It was
He meant
McLaren.
back in the day, the extra pedal. No, I'm not surprised
the famous
at all.
Darren Heath photograph down in
Absolutely.
the footwell.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do a 2-car garage now. I'll read it out. Sorry, this is dragging on a bit, people. I apologise. The next one will be shorter. Here we go. So, it's 1986. You're one of Thatcher's children, which means Sakir will have taken your picture down. You've just done an IPO of your firm, which you've worked extremely hard to build. You like planes, trains, and you sort of get the idea. You want to show off to your friends with something very fast and very cool. You'll also likely have grown up clients for your next venture who will not appreciate your Yellowbird or F40. We might have given you an idea there. Your second car will thus need to be something that is both impressive and discreet to travel the city with. The budget, well, key. It's not 87 yet, so you go for it. Let's start off with Neil Clifford, please.
Okay. I saw this car yesterday at Salon Privé, a lovely little event, as we all know, at Blenheim Palace. Made perfect by a guy that I now know. His name is Albert. Bought the car from, I think, Brisbane. It was supposed to be mint, but Albert is very, very, very particular. So he then completely restored it again. And it's a car that it's not new in 86. So it's a bit top trumpy, but it's also a car that you would really struggle to value because it could look like a bit of a giant Opel or something. But if you know, you know, and it's a Monteverdi 375 L. I think they had a name as well, didn't they? I can't remember. Something like Superfast or something, or Speed.
Yeah. I knew. I thought you might end up with something like that.
Yeah. So it's more niche than an Espada. It's really on the spectrum of niche, PH14 niche. And this exact car was silver, owned by Albert, with an orangey tan leather. So I think he's done a bit of a Manish and, retrimmed it perfectly. And I'm going to bring up a photo. It just looked so bloody fantastic. There it is. It's probably hard to see. Just a gorgeous thing.
Yeah.
Looked it up. It's high speed. It's the high speed.
That's right.
Isn't that a great name for a car?
Yes.
High speed. It's not over the top.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And it could, for people that don't know, it could be 30 grand's worth of 70s Opel.
No. Like a bitter or something like that.
It's a mega thing, but also you can sort of service it easily. Got a big American V8, cool as fuck, brilliant. So that would be my special weekend car, to just be a player, but low key player. And then, what's the best car in the world in 86? I'm sure Car did the article. It was a fight between the Series 3 XJ V12 and the Mercedes 560 SEL. And that was the thing, wasn't it? And probably you'd want the Jag emotionally because the ride is better and it's British, but actually it's probably going to break down. I don't have much luck with Jaguars anyway because
it's the W126, you know it.
It's the W126.
Wait a minute.
It's smoked silver. That silver with a touch of bronze in it. It's velour, not leather. It's everything. And it's got that big Becker, and it's not going to break down. And people really aren't going to understand it, but they would just know it stinks of wealth.
Yeah. And also, when you take delivery of it, you're going to have that printout, like a typewriter printout of the spec, and all the extras are going to be listed with the price next to them.
Yeah.
And you're going to see that, floor mats were like 600 quid.
Yeah. So they're going
to charge you for the air that was in the cabin when you open the door.
For
when
the
you
first time.
bought it from Crookshanks in Bristol.
But the minute you open that sunroof, that giant sunroof, you're just going to be like, actually, this is the bollocks, and it'd do
Right, bollocks
150.
to this renewal thing. I'm buying a W126
Yeah,
now. And an
Yeah, I've been
Alpina.
looking at them all afternoon.
Yeah.
Who was the Mercedes dealer down on the bridge on the river in London? Was that Bradshaw Webb?
That was, right opposite Albert Bridge.
Yeah.
I think that
Still
was
there.
Bradshaw, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was that dealership. Okay, right. So that's a fantastic two-car garage. Manish Pandey, what are you going to have?
I think this is the prettiest since I'm into Ferraris at the time, as the 288 GTO.
Oh, God's sake, Manish.
Yeah.
What? I
Not that
can't
obvious.
have. No, it's silver. It's got black leather inside, and it is
They
just.
didn't make a silver one.
I know. So I found one, and it was Rosso Corsa, and the guy had it stripped and repainted.
Hamish.
With black inside. I'm so sorry. But the thing I
Look
love
here.
about this car,
Hamish, what are you doing, Hamish?
£73,499 new.
Yeah.
And the inflation adjustment machine says we're 3.67 times that now. If you bought this new today, it will be £269,741. I love the look of this car. I don't think I've never seen a Ferrari that floored me quite as much as this until I met Lola.
Yeah.
So no, just have to have it. Obvious, I know, but I have to have it. And then my grown-up car to go to the office with, where I look kind of cool, and I don't want the M version. I just want the BMW 635 CSI, the E34, dark green, tan. I'm just going to look cool. Just made a couple of million quid selling.
I think we're all on the same lines there.
And that's what I've done. This is it.
Chris Cooper.
Oh, you're not impressed. I love it.
I am very impressed.
No, totally.
Because I've got 288 GTO written on my piece of paper, man.
Quickly.
I need you. I don't believe it.
I actually forgot about the 288 GTO.
Yeah, it's 86.
Yeah. There's a clue in the title. Cameron wrote this, or Cameron Finney contributed as well. You're into planes, trains, and you get the picture. I reckon if you just sold your business and you're in Thatcher's Britain, nothing said I've made it better than an Agusta 109 helicopter.
Oh,
that's what you'd have. You have an Agusta 109.
Yeah.
If you didn't have a pilot's license, then I think you might have a Zagato Aston Vantage.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's more 87 though, wasn't it?
No, 86. It came out. I remember it was. I've got those. It was a car magazine. I've got somewhere. Late 86.
The Rowan Atkinson test of his blue one was August 87.
Yeah,
was it?
It was a bit more 87. I saw Rowan Atkinson looking at a blue one today at.
Did you?
We saw him.
Yeah. Was it his old one? So
it could be.
But for the other one, I think you'd have a C126 Mercedes.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
560 SEC coupe.
Yeah. Nice.
In fact, you'd have the one that Nigel Mansell had, that then Ryan Sewell then owned.
Yeah.
I think it's now in the Mercedes Museum.
The lovely Rob Halloway bought it for their collection. I think they sold it on when they tried to disband the collection. It had done very few miles.
Yeah. So I think a C126 560 SEC in 1986, you could have smoked. You clearly wouldn't smoke, but you could have smoked in this thing around town and city and to the country, as people would often say, thinking this person has made it without it being too ostentatious. So I think, Agusta 109 and a 560 SEC would be my two vehicle garage.
Mm-hmm.
There was someone who I won't mention by name, who was an old school motor trader from the Bristol area that I once sold a few cars through. I was in his little lockup, and I can't remember what I had. I think I had a 330 or something, and he had a SEC in there. And I walked over and I went, "God, those are amazing!" And literally, like Tony from the Fast Show, he went, "Ah, yes, the Sierra Echo Charlie." And I was like, "What?" He referred to it as a Sierra Echo Charlie.
That's brilliant. I'm gonna have to do that.
So Manish just totally balls me up there, but he's got a resprayed 288. I had here black on black 288 GTO with all 4 shark lights yellowed a la France underneath.
Ooh.
Black with yellow light. I've seen one in that spec in France.
It's a Sultan of Brunei's car.
I did a sex tweet when I saw it. It's unbelievable. But I can't have that because he's got it. So I'm going double German here. It's 86. So the E28 M5 has just come out, and you've got to have one. It's the best car, and it's got that speedo that goes to 160 with the one notch beyond it. But I'm going for an interesting spec actually. They did a light blue. It's rare. I can't remember the name of the light, but it's a very light blue. And with that, you could get a blue M-Tech cloth interior, which is utterly stunning. It's not the leather. It's a cloth interior, grips you better. And I think if you took the badges off it, light blue with that interior, your clients for your new venture are going to have no idea. So that covers that off. The other car from that era that I was fascinated by, I've driven them subsequently, and they aren't actually that good, but they were real magazine cover fodder. And I think I just about get it here, is a Sport Quattro.
Oh,
I just
God, 86 was brilliant, wasn't it?
Oh,
yeah, it was 86.
And I just remember the Mel Nichols story, Quattro Vardis in Car Magazine, with this shot of it. Like he's gone in and a bloody thing's on this head like a bus, and he's got on the power. It's sort of almost like a wheelie. It's a red one.
Just that.
Those Ronal alloy wheels that had the deep dish. We both, Neil and I, know a man who's a very, very talented singer, a musical artist who's got a white one. And you'd get a limpet off a rock with your little finger before you get that out of him, wouldn't you now?
Yeah.
It's an amazing car. But they're not that good. You know, they have aged. But can you imagine you open up your garage and you see a Sport Quattro and an M5? Oh, come on.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a bit of music before we leave you for this first of our new podcasts, which is currently still called Chris Harris and Friends Car Podcast, but might change to Off the Clock in the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to ask just for a music choice. Neil wants us to do Oasis because it's just been announced that they're reforming. So Neil's going to give us an Oasis tune. They all might. I might not.
I mean, we're certainly going to be there trying to get tickets and failing tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, like everyone else in the United Kingdom, and then have to spend 1,500 quid 3 weeks later on the same fucking ticket. But it's for me, it's Oasis, and there's I love them, love every single song they've done. The big debate is, do you like the ones that Liam sang in, or as they finally sort of hated each other? Noel sang more, didn't he?
Yeah.
And actually, even though I adore Liam, I normally prefer the ones that Noel sings, actually. Anyway, it's called Talk Tonight, and it's really good. And it's a true story about him getting stuck when Liam pissed off and he met a random girl and they did coke together in San Francisco. And it's a super song. So try it out. It's good.
I like that. Manish?
Very obvious Wonderwall. And that thing just crossed the Atlantic so damn quickly. I remember being in a bar in New York. At, I think it was 2 a.m. It was a very nice bar on the Upper East Side. The music came on and everyone was on their chairs singing it. Wonderful.
Yeah, mega.
Chris Cooper.
It's another predictable one, but there's a reason for it. Champagne Supernova.
Yeah.
When Lynn and I were first married, we had a TVR Chimera. It was her company car. It was amazing. What? Actually, really reliable. Yeah, really reliable. And we had that album and we'd play it a lot. And it was just reminded me of getting married, TVR, in the countryside. Champagne Supernova was just long enough, and just the way it built, and just the right, So Champagne Supernova.
I love Oasis. I do, and I think they, I was that age of the 90s, and it was fantastic. It was summarised as a brilliantly simple rock band. I think it was a really clever way of describing them. They just were a rock band, weren't they? Nothing else to it. But if you gave me every single Oasis song available on a playlist, some of them I'd play in a car and they'd evoke an emotion. I love them. But if you gave me this song, which is not by Oasis, I think it would trump them all, because I played it the other day in the car, and I think everyone should listen to this. It's California Soul by Marlena Shaw. Put that on
Yeah,
when
it's good
you
that.
put
Yeah.
that on when
Yeah.
you want to go for a drive on your own, and tell me you don't start tapping the steering wheel and
Yeah.
thinking how great your life is. That
That's the
song
test.
makes you feel like you've got a really good life. So please put it on. I know it's not an Oasis song, but go and listen to it now. It's joy in the shape of music. So that's been, for me, a really lovely hour and a bit chatting to my old mates. It's going to be a regular fixture from now on. Like I said, it's got a name. The name might change. Doesn't really matter, does it? It's just a load of us talking to you. It's been a pleasure on behalf of Neil Clifford, Manish Pandey and Chris Cooper. And you'll hear from us in a week's time. Bye-bye.